All right, welcome everyone to another deep dive. And today we're going to be jumping into something pretty special.
Yeah, really looking forward to this one.
The first 5 verses of Surah Al-Baqarah,
The longest surah in the Quran.
the longest chapter.
So the first 5 verses of Surah Al-Baqarah in English read like this.
Alif Lam Mim, that is the book about which there is no doubt, a guidance for those conscious of Allah who believe in the unseen, establish prayer, and spend out of what we have provided for them.
And who believe in what has been revealed to you and what was revealed before you, and of the hereafter, they are certain. They are upon guidance from their Lord, and it is they who will succeed.
Beautiful, thank you for that.
This surah is called Al-Baqarah, which means the cow.
Okay, let's unpack this.
It is the longest chapter in the Quran, and it was revealed over a period of time in Medina.
Here's where it gets really interesting.
The content is really comprehensive, covering many aspects of faith and life.
So what does this all mean?
You've got discussions of monotheism, the afterlife, and the miraculous nature of the Quran.
Right, I remember reading about that.
Plus, there's also the history of past prophets and various Islamic rulings on things like prayer, fasting, and even trade.
Wow, that's a lot. It's like a crash course in Islamic teachings.
Exactly, and it touches on the challenges faced by early Muslims as well.
And what about the virtue of this surah?
Well, there are many narrations about its virtues, and it's considered to be among the best surahs of the Quran.
Oh, interesting. Tell me more.
For example, there's a famous narration that when the Prophet was asked which surah was best, he said, Al-Baqarah.
That's quite a statement.
And there's also a specific verse in this surah, Ayat al-Kursi, that's also considered to be the best verse.
So it's like the surah's important, but even within it, there are parts with even more significance.
Exactly, and the virtue isn't just in the recitation, but in understanding, reflecting, and acting upon the verses.
So it's not just about reading the words, but living them.
Precisely.
And it all starts with those mysterious letters,
Oh, yeah, the
Well-
famous Alif Lam Mim.
Alif Lam Mim. We see them at the beginning of other surahs as well. And it always makes me wonder, what's the deeper significance behind these letters?
It's a question that's intrigued scholars for centuries. But the prevailing thought is that they emphasize the Quran's divine origin.
Divine origin. So how do they do that?
Well, think about it. The Quran with this incredible message, right? It uses the same Arabic letters that everyone uses, but no one can replicate its eloquence.
It's true, and I always think back to the stories of the pre-Islamic Arabs who were known for their mastery of language.
Absolutely.
They were challenged to create something like the Quran, and they couldn't even come close.
Exactly. And it just shows you the unique nature of the Quran, its divine nature.
So it's like Allah is saying, look, I can take these simple letters that you use every day, and I can create something miraculous with them.
Precisely. It's a testament to his power and wisdom.
And it's a pattern we see throughout the Quran.
Yeah, every surah that starts with these letters immediately dives into the Quran's grandeur, its importance.
Like a signature, a mark of divine authorship.
Exactly. And what's fascinating here is that there actually is a narration that supports what we're discussing.
Oh, interesting. Tell me more.
Well, Imam Ali ibn al-Hussein said that the Quraysh and the Jews rejected the Quran.
Right, they were saying it was fabricated.
Yes, they were calling it magic, and in response, Allah revealed Alif Lam Mim, that is the book.
So what's the connection there?
Well, Imam Ali ibn al-Hussein explained that Allah was saying, this book, made of the very letters you use, is beyond your ability to replicate.
It's like he's saying, here are your letters, now try and make something like this.
Exactly. It's using the language of the people, but in a way they couldn't match, and that confirms the Quran's divine origin.
That's a powerful way to look at it. And then we move on to verse 2, which declares, that is the book about which there is no doubt, a guidance for those conscious of Allah.
A powerful statement of certainty.
It is, but for someone who's maybe exploring the Quran for the first time, they might ask, well, what makes it so undeniably true? What makes it free from doubt?
Well, there are so many things, but just to start, the internal consistency of the Quran is striking.
You mean the fact that it was revealed over 23 years, but it's one cohesive message?
Exactly. There are no contradictions, no inconsistencies.
And then you have the fact that it aligns with scientific discoveries.
Yes. So many verses describe phenomena with astonishing accuracy, centuries before modern science could confirm them.
Like the Quran's description of embryonic development, which mirrors modern embryology.
Precisely, and those are just a few examples.
It's like the Quran had access to knowledge that was beyond human comprehension at the time.
Right, and that knowledge, that wisdom, is still being uncovered today as our understanding of the universe expands.
It really makes you think.
So why did the Quran use the phrase, that is the book, instead of this is the book?
Well, that's a great question, and it's something we touched on but didn't explore fully.
Yeah, I'm really curious to hear your thoughts.
The use of that instead of this emphasizes the Quran's exalted status.
So it's not about the physical distance, but rather the importance of the Quran.
Precisely. It's like placing the Quran on a higher plane of existence, so to speak.
It's like the Quran is set apart from everything else.
Exactly. It's a way of highlighting the divine origins of the Quran and how it's transcendent.
And that subtle change in wording, it really does make a huge difference.
And it also reinforces that point we made about the exalted nature of the Quran.
It's like the Quran places itself at the highest point, so to speak.
It's like the distance is emphasizing its greatness, as we have discussed before.
And it's the little details like that that really highlight the depth and meaning of the text.
Absolutely. And it's a good reminder for us to always pay attention to those subtle nuances.
So before we continue with our conversation about the verses, let's shift our focus slightly.
Yeah, let's take a moment to really dig deeper into a question we touched on previously. Okay, so what is the meaning of guidance and where else is that mentioned?
Well, that's a fantastic question, and it has multiple layers.
Yeah, we've touched on it before, but let's dive a little deeper.
The word guidance in the Quran has a few meanings.
Right, but it all boils down to two main ideas.
The first one is guidance in creation, which applies to everything in the universe.
It's like the natural order and laws that govern existence.
And the Quran gives an example with Prophet Musa.
Yes, it says, "Our Lord is he who gave each thing its form, then guided it."
So every being is guided by Allah to fulfill its purpose.
Exactly. And then the second type is guidance in legislation.
This one is specific to humans through prophets and scriptures.
It's the way to reach spiritual perfection, a higher level of being.
And the Quran mentions we made them leaders guided by our command.
So it's like we have a path laid out to reach that perfection,
And you ask where else it appears, it's mentioned in Surah Al-Fatiha.
which is the opening chapter of the Quran, right?
Yes, it says guide us to the straight path.
And that verse embodies the longing for guidance.
And in Surah Hud, the Quran is described as a book whose verses have been perfected.
And it was presented to us by the wise, all aware.
It's a constant reminder of where that guidance comes from.
And it emphasizes that it is designed to lead us to a better purpose.
And it all comes back to the importance of being open to that guidance.
Exactly. It's like the rain, only the fertile land will benefit.
So you need a heart that is open to the truth.
Now, you mentioned guidance for those who are conscious of Allah. So who are these people? Who are the ones who truly benefit from this guidance?
Well, that brings us to verses 3 to 5, which paint a beautiful picture of them.
It's like a guide to living a life of purpose and meaning.
Absolutely. And it all starts with belief in the unseen.
Not just believing in God, but acknowledging a reality beyond our senses.
Exactly. It's recognizing that there's a spiritual dimension to life.
Like understanding that we have a soul and a connection to something greater than ourselves.
Precisely. It's a belief that can give our lives so much meaning, you know?
I do. And then the second quality is establishing prayer.
And prayer is so much more than just a ritual.
It's a way to connect with your inner self and align with a higher purpose.
It's a time for reflection, for gratitude, for seeking forgiveness.
And finding that inner peace.
Exactly.
And then we have the third quality, which is spending from what we're given.
This is one that really speaks to me.
Me too. And I think it goes beyond just money, right?
No, absolutely. It's about generosity in all its forms, whether it's our time, our talents, our resources.
Recognizing that everything we have is a gift and using it to benefit others.
It's about sharing those gifts.
Exactly. And then the fourth quality is belief in all prophets.
Recognizing the shared thread of guidance and unity in all religions.
It's about being open-minded, not prejudiced.
Right. Understanding that at their core, all religions call for good and forbid evil.
And finally, we have certainty of the hereafter.
This one is so crucial, you know?
It really is. It gives life meaning.
It makes our actions matter.
It's about striving for good, not just for earthly gains, but for something much greater.
It's about recognizing that this life is just a temporary stop on a much longer journey.
And all of these qualities are beautifully tied together in verse 5, which says, "They are upon guidance from their Lord, and it is they who will succeed."
It's a powerful promise.
It really is a promise that our efforts to live a righteous life will be rewarded.
A promise of guidance and a promise of success.
It's like Allah is saying, follow this path and you will find what you're looking for.
It's an invitation to a life of purpose and meaning. And it's a key point to understand about who this guidance is really for.
So with that being said, let me ask this question.
All right, I'm ready.
Why is the Quranic guidance specifically for the God-conscious and not for others?
That's a really important question, and it gets to the heart of these verses.
Yeah, we've touched on this a few times, but I think it's worth revisiting.
Well, as we've discussed, the Quran is actually a source of guidance for all humanity.
Yes, it's a message for everyone, not just one group.
But the verse uses that specific phrase, guidance for the God conscious, and that is intentional.
And it really comes down to the concept of receptivity, as we've discussed.
Exactly. You need to be open to the message, the truth, to benefit.
It's like having fertile soil, ready to receive the seed.
And that receptivity comes from a genuine desire to seek the truth.
It's about having a heart that is free from prejudice and arrogance.
And it's that desire for truth that makes the guidance so effective.
So it's not that others can't benefit, but the sincere are most open to it.
Precisely. And that's what makes their guidance so meaningful.
You know, it's amazing how much depth and meaning is packed into just these first 5 verses.
It's truly remarkable.
They offer so much wisdom and guidance. It's like a blueprint for a fulfilling life.
And that's just the beginning. There's so much more to explore in this surah.
I can't wait to delve into the rest of it.
Me neither. It's going to be an incredible journey.
It is, it is.
It's fascinating how these opening verses, revealed in Medina, they were addressing a community that was already established.
That's a really good point. So you're saying that these qualities are not just for individuals, but they actually form the foundation of a just and thriving society.
Absolutely. Think about spending from what we're given. It takes on a whole new meaning when you think about its impact on social welfare, economic justice, communal support.
Right. It becomes about recognizing our interconnectedness, understanding that what we do individually affects everyone.
Exactly. It's about understanding that we're all part of a larger whole.
And belief in all prophets, that becomes even more important in a diverse society.
It does. It really does. It promotes tolerance, understanding, respect for different faiths and cultures.
About building bridges instead of walls.
Yes, exactly. It's about seeing our common humanity.
Now, I'm curious about how the idea of belief in the unseen fits into a world that often prioritizes the tangible and the measurable.
That's a great question, and it's a challenge for many people, but I think belief in the unseen acts as a counterbalance.
Like a reminder that there's more to life than what we can see and touch.
Yeah, exactly. It encourages us to look beyond the immediate, to consider the ethical implications of our actions, even when there's no immediate tangible reward.
So it becomes like a moral compass.
It does. It shapes our values, even when it's not easy or convenient.
And it reminds us that we're accountable for our actions.
Yes, accountable to something greater than ourselves.
I want to circle back to those disjointed letters again, Alif, Lam, Mim. You mentioned they're like a divine signature highlighting the Quran's unique eloquence. Can you elaborate on that a little more? What makes the Quran's language so special?
Remember, the Quran was revealed at a time when Arabic poetry and prose were already highly developed.
The Arabs were known for their eloquence.
Exactly. They had a deep appreciation for language, but the Quran, it was something completely different.
So it wasn't just beautiful language, it was something more.
It was the impact those words had on the hearts and minds of the people.
It's like the words themselves carry a weight, a power that transcends human language.
And that's reflected in the famous challenge the Quran issues to produce something like it.
And no one could.
No one has been able to.
It's like the Quran is saying, if you think this is just human speech, try to match it.
And to this day, no one has come close.
Now let's go back to verse 2. This is the book about which there is no doubt, a guidance for those conscious of Allah. What makes this book so undeniably true, so free from doubt?
We've already talked about the internal consistency, right? No contradictions despite being revealed over so many years.
Right, and it aligns with scientific discoveries.
Exactly. Verses that describe things like embryonic development, the expansion of the universe, the properties of water, all aligning with modern science.
It's like the Quran had a glimpse into the future of our scientific understanding.
It's incredible, isn't it?
It really is. And then there's the impact the Quran has had on individuals and societies throughout history.
People turning their lives around, finding peace and purpose, contributing to the betterment of humanity, it's undeniable.
So the Quran's truth isn't just an intellectual concept, it's something that you see manifested in the real world.
In the positive changes it inspires.
Exactly. And the verse mentions guidance for those conscious of Allah. So it seems like the Quran is offering this guidance to everyone, but it's those who are truly receptive who benefit the most.
You're right. It's about approaching the Quran with humility, sincerity, a desire to learn and grow.
And that brings us back to those 5 qualities of the Muttaqin.
The ones who are conscious of Allah.
Yes, starting with belief in the unseen.
Recognizing that there's more to reality than what our senses can perceive.
We talked about how it's more than just believing in God. It's acknowledging a whole other dimension.
A spiritual dimension that shapes how we understand everything.
It's like recognizing that we're not just physical beings,
We have a spiritual
a
essence.
connection to something much greater.
And that belief can give our lives so much meaning.
It's about purpose, isn't it?
It is. It's about understanding why we're here.
Now, how does this belief manifest in the lives of people who truly embrace it?
Well, I think you see it in their humility.
They recognize that they're not the ultimate source of their own existence.
Exactly. They're grateful for the blessings in their lives.
They see everything as a gift.
And that gratitude extends to how they treat others.
They're more compassionate, more kind, more forgiving.
It's like this belief creates a sense of shared humanity, a sense of interconnectedness.
That makes me think about establishing prayer.
Ah, yes, prayer.
We talked about how it's more than just asking for things.
It's a way to connect with that greater power, to find peace, to align ourselves.
It's like taking a break from the world, a moment of stillness and reflection.
It can be so grounding.
No, spending from what we're given. We talked about generosity, but I think there's so many nuances to this concept.
Oh, there are. It's not just about money. It's about giving of ourselves in whatever ways we can.
Our time, our talents, our knowledge.
More compassion.
Recognizing that we're part of a community, a society, and we have a responsibility to contribute.
It's about understanding that our actions have an impact on others.
And that even small acts of kindness can make a difference.
They can ripple outwards, inspiring others to do the same.
And that brings us to belief in all prophets.
Recognizing that God has sent guidance throughout history.
And that while the specific teachings might differ, the core message is always the same.
Worship the one God, live a righteous life, treat others with compassion.
It's about focusing on those universal values that unite us.
It is. It's about building bridges between different faiths.
It's about seeing our common humanity.
And recognizing that we're all on a similar journey.
And finally, certainty of the hereafter.
This one is often misunderstood.
People think it's just about fear of punishment.
But it's also about hope, about the promise of reward.
Understanding that this life isn't the end.
That our actions have consequences beyond this world.
And that we will be held accountable.
It gives life a whole new meaning.
It makes our choices matter.
It does, because we're not just living for this moment, we're living for eternity. You know, as we're talking about those who are conscious of Allah and that promise of success, it makes me think of this beautiful image of guidance being like a ship, you know, carrying us toward that success.
I love that analogy. It's so vivid, and it reminds us that the Quran isn't just something to be read, it's something to be lived, to be experienced.
Exactly. Each verse is like a wave propelling us forward, helping us navigate through life's challenges.
And like any good ship, we need a skilled captain to guide us, right?
We do, and that's where the concept of taqwa comes in.
Taqwa, yes. We touched upon it briefly before, but it's such an important concept.
It really is. It's often translated as God consciousness, but I think that doesn't quite capture its full meaning.
I agree. What does taqwa mean to you?
Taqwa is like having this inner compass, a shield that protects us from going astray.
A shield. I like that.
It's about being mindful of Allah in everything we do, and that mindfulness naturally leads us to make choices that are aligned with our values, choices that bring us closer to Him.
So it's not about living in fear. It's about living with awareness.
Yes. Awareness of Allah's presence. Awareness of the consequences of our actions.
It's about recognizing that our choices matter and that we should strive to make choices that are pleasing to God.
Exactly. And all of those qualities we've been talking about, belief in the unseen, establishing prayer, spending from what we're given, belief in all prophets, certainty of the hereafter, they all become expressions of taqwa.
They're all connected.
They are. It's like taqwa's the engine that powers our ship, propelling us toward a life of meaning and purpose.
And that journey of developing taqwa, it's a lifelong journey, isn't it?
It's a continuous process of striving to improve ourselves, to purify our hearts, to align our actions with Allah's will.
It's about progress, not perfection.
Exactly. And the beautiful thing is that we don't have to do it alone.
We have guidance.
We do. Allah guides us, supports us, gives us the tools we need to succeed.
And one of the most powerful tools we have is the Quran itself.
Absolutely. It's the ultimate guidebook for navigating life's complexities.
It's like having a wise mentor, always there to offer guidance and support.
Filled with stories, reminders, practical advice, everything we need to live a fulfilling life.
It's a map that shows us the way, it illuminates the path, it helps us avoid those pitfalls.
And the more we engage with it, the more its wisdom penetrates our hearts.
So as we wrap up our deep dives into these opening verses of Surah Al-Baqarah, I want to leave our listeners with a challenge.
A challenge. I like it.
Don't just admire these qualities of the Mutakan from afar.
Embrace them.
Internalize them.
Let them guide your action.
Let them shape your choices.
Let them be your compass and your anchor.
Because the journey toward a meaningful life begins with a single step.
And maybe, just maybe, this deep dive has inspired you to take that step.
Keep seeking, keep learning, and keep diving deep into the ocean of knowledge.